Want to be happy? Build a life, not just a business. Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and this channel was created to help you overcome the #1 challenge that is holding you back, a lack of belief in yourself. You watch these videos because you know there's something more inside you too. You've got Michael Jordan level genius at something. So today, let's live your best belief life and get some incredible motivation from Robin Sharma. Enjoy.
The very nature of being a human being is we are built to progress. We know that the human brain craves novelty. And we are most alive, we have the most energy, we are most intimate with our best selves when we're progressing towards our mighty mission. So I think we all want. I think what's happened on the planet right now is there's been a great seduction and a great brainwashing. When we are kids, we want. We want to be astronauts. We want to be billionaires. We want to be history makers. We want to do all our dreams. And then, and we stand in awe and wonder. And we're full of curiosity. And we're loving. And we're passionate. And we're strong. We're not afraid to be ourselves. But as we leave the perfection of childhood, the hypnosis and the brainwashing begins. Our well-intentioned parents say, oh, you want to be an astronaut? You want to start a business when you grow up? You want to paint like Jean-Michel Basquiat? Be reasonable. And George Bernard Shaw said it better than I ever could. He said, the reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in adapting the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man. So that's our nature, but our parents give us limitation based on their limited psychology and their emotional patterns that they learned from their parents. Then we go to school and we're taught to live in a box, think in a box, dress like everyone else. Don't sing too loudly, don't dream too big, don't be too passionate. And then our peers do the same thing to us. And then society says, oh, genius is the realm of genetics, not everyday people, which has been dismissed by some very good science. You know, I mean, the 10,000-hour rule that we all know from a Florida State University professor, Anders Ericsson, it just confirms so much. So I do think we all want. I think what's happened is as we've left who we truly are, we've contracted. And now it's all about staying safe in the world versus going out there and letting our brilliance, our primal genius shine. And a lot of people just have stuffed that pain of disappointment and their doubt really deep inside. And they just are addicted to distraction and escapes because they don't want to deal with their potential that they've denied.
And I think that's an important point, which is I think we live in a world where the seduction is to push 1,000 pieces of mediocrity versus deliver one piece of mastery. Yeah. And what I mean by that is if you spend 20 years on one book, but it is the greatest book that you could possibly do, then that's a win. And by the way, even if the world doesn't applaud what you bring to the world, if you've delivered your piece of magic to the world, your Sistine Chapel ceiling to the world, you've won.
Yes.
You know, we live in this world that is much more about egoism versus heroism. And I think heroism is, it's really, the race is really a race against yourself. I'm not that into applause and, you know, worldly accolades. I think if you feel you've done your best and you've been true to your creativity and you've lived by your values and you've released what you believe to be magic to the world and you've done your best to raise others while you've honored yourself, you're a hero. You've won. You know, it doesn't matter if you're an army of one. I mean, I believe Van Gogh didn't sell one piece of art while he was alive.
Your phone is costing you your fortune. It is an addiction. It's a dopamine addiction. Start the process of breaking your addiction to distraction here in this room today. You've invested in this. You're a learning investor. The best investment you can make is being in this room. Why would you spend it checking your notifications, looking at your email, looking at SMS, looking at pictures of people's breakfasts? Why would you do that? Well, this is your life. This is your career. This is your craft. This is your service to humanity. Why would you be checking your phone? And if you look at a victim, if you look at most people on the planet, they're literally hooked to a white screen. They are wasting their human potential hooked into some social platform that is creating empires for other people. Many people, if not most people, are now a form of artificial intelligence. They're not living their brain's potential. They're not living their physiological potential. They're not living their creative potential. They're not living their human potential. They're not living their economic potential. Why? Because they're hooked to a screen. It is the most frightening time in the history of the world, and it's the most gorgeous time in the history of humanity. Why? Because it's never been so easy to be a hero. Because most people aren't doing it. Most people are lost. Most people are hooked. So turn off your phones. Get serious about this. This is your game. This is your life. This is your sport. And before you know it, you will be at the end. We all know that life goes by in a blink.
Also, if you want to have more self-belief and more self-confidence, I've created a special free program where every day for the next 254 days, I will send you an unlisted video to help you boost your self-belief and self-confidence. The link to join for free is in the description below.
And so stop resisting. I encourage you, stop resisting the natural flow of epic performance. Stop resisting the natural seasons of life.
I've gone through situations where, people have tried to take me down. You're absolutely right. I've had 10 years of my personal journals where I pour my heart, my confusion, my pain, my hopes, my dream. I've had those, I'll just simply say, taken.
Wow.
Which taught me detachment.
Wow.
Like Lewis, imagine, do you journal?
A little bit, here and there, yes, a little bit.
Okay, journaling is like incredible.
It's powerful, yeah.
For self-excavation, for creativity, productivity. Yeah. We can get into epigenetics. You know, if you want to rewire your psychology as well as your heart set, journaling is powerful. But I've had those taken
away from you.
Just taken away from
10 years of journals.
10 years of journals.
Oh my God, all your private thoughts.
All my private thoughts.
Fears.
Exactly. So that's just one thing that I've gone through.
So what was the lesson there? Learning detachment and
letting go.
Not caring about the opinions of others?
There's been another time of my life, and I don't think I've ever shared this publicly, but where there was a situation where I could have lost everything that I've spent 22 years in this field of leadership and personal mastery building, which again taught me what real wealth and success is all about. I mean, there's a line in the 5 a.m. Club, which is nothing is worth the price of your peace of mind.
Tranquility is the new luxury. So whether you're a homemaker, a professional athlete, an entrepreneur, a pizza builder, maybe that's not the term of art, but you do your best work, we have our greatest impact, and we are most true to our best selves when we're tranquil, peaceful, and serene. And that's another value of joining the 5 a.m. Club, because those hours before the sun rises are the most peaceful, magical, quiet period of the day. And if we can anchor in who we truly want to be before we go out into a messy world, well, we're going to fundamentally behave differently. Clarity is the DNA of mastery. So if you look at the titans of business, the true leaders in finance, these people literally will say, look at my charts. If you look at a great military leader, you look at a great athlete, they have such granular, in a world of superficiality, they have shifted to massive granularity so they know in intimate detail exactly what their future timeline will look like. Why? Because clarity breeds and builds and is the DNA of mastery. You want to have a very clear vision of what your future is going to look like. And when you know in intimate detail what your future will look like, then you automatically, subconsciously as well as consciously, can say no to the important. So you say a giant yes to the few things that are most important. You've heard me share this before. Confucius said it so well. The person who chases two rabbits catches neither. And so what I'm encouraging you to do is this exercise before you go to sleep tonight. Let's make this very tactical. I call it the 100-year timeline. On a single page from where you now are, 100 years out into your ideal future.
I want you every single milestone on a single line to say, here's where I now am. Here's what's going to happen next week, next month, next quarter, next year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, 50 years, 75 years, 1 year, 100 years, until you have a 100-year timeline. On the other side of the piece of paper with crayons. So you tap into your part of the brain responsible for creativity, your right brain. Okay, with crayons, draw out your ideal family life, draw 1 year away, draw out your business life 1 year away, draw out your adventure life 1 year out into the future, draw out your financial life, draw out your material life, literally on a page with crayons, so you're not thinking, because here's a needle-moving insight. World class comes from instinct versus intelligence. You get your best ideas when you get out of your thinking. And just to give you some neuroscience, the seat of reasoning is the prefrontal cortex, but there's a phenomenon I teach in my live events called transient hypofrontality. This is the secret of genius. Geniuses don't get their ideas for Uber, Amazon, the electric bulb, Tesla, Shakespeare, the polio vaccination, SpaceX. Great ideas don't come from the intellects. They don't come from the neocortex reasoning and thinking. All great heroes and great inventors and great creators dialed into something deeper. When you get out of your neocortex through solitude and my life structure that I teach called the tight bubble of total focus, and when you get away from distraction and you immerse yourself in deep creativity and creation, and you find your laboratory, or what I call your Menlo Park, like Edison had his Menlo Park, which was with the wilderness away from the world, what happens? The prefrontal cortex gets silent, and it's called transient, which means temporary, transient hypo, small frontality. The neocortex, the seat in your brain of thinking, actually shuts down for a short period of time. This is profound information and will confirm your brain is built for genius. But if you don't do the right things, you're not going to be able to allow the genius to see the light of day. You might have a great mindset, positive thinking, but if you have a heart set full of anger, if your emotional life is sad, if you're disappointed from the past, if you haven't done the sweat lodges and the journaling and the body work and the affirmations to really open up a heart set, then you can have the mindset of an Elon Musk. You can have the mindset of a Steve Jobs. You can have a mindset of a Kobe, but you're going to sabotage yourself from world class. And to me, this is the great myth of positive thinking. You see a lot of people, they read all the books, they're positive thinkers, they've got the vision boards, nothing changes. Why? Because subconsciously, there's this wounding and a lack of deservability, and it's unconscious. And so they haven't done the work, or you may have not done the work to make the wounds of undeservability and scarcity and the low self-worth. That's why positive thinking alone does not work. This is, to me, a revolutionary insight. And by the way, a lot of the people who teach positive thinking in the past are men. So it's very male mind. And a lot of the people who are pioneers of heart set are women. Heart, empathy, healing. And so self-mastery to me, and this is a pioneering model that I teach at Personal Mastery Academy, it's not just mindset. That's only 25% of self-mastery. And as you know, self-mastery is the DNA of outer mastery. You're never going to perform higher than what's going on within. Mindset is only 25%. Heart set, your emotional life, working from confidence and love and service, and that sense of internal freedom is only another 25%. So those two are only 50%. There's a third interior empire you want to get to world class, which is health set. Working on your energy, your nutrition, your daily exercise, hacking your longevity, eating the right supplements, getting a massage every 2 weeks. You know my 2 massage protocol, doing your 60-minute nature walk every week so that your health set is at world class, but that's only 75% of the equation towards self-mastery. You can have a great mindset, great heart set, great health set, but if you haven't worked on your soul set, turning down your ego. You know what disease and what energy depletion is caused by your ego beating you relentlessly about you not being enough and seeing your industry peers succeeding and you feel insecure and irritated and angry and jealous? Well, where do you do that work? Within your soul set, the fourth interior empire. And as you do that, you turn down the ego and you open up your humanity and you open up your spiritual life and you become more soulful. And then you release work that is artistry versus just to win in the next few months. When you literally give your life over to a mighty mission that is larger than your ego, and you literally start to see your work as a ministry for the benefit of humanity. And if you're an artist or an entrepreneur or CEO, manager, or coder, a doctor, a firefighter, but literally, if you saw your work as your poetry and your artistry, and you were on a mighty mission that was larger than even your ego and yourself, what would the caliber of your output be? So few people who could succeed actually do succeed because they've given up on learning, study, and growth. LSG, learning, study, and growth. So the neurobiologists and neuropsychologists will tell us that the human brain craves learning, and it craves curiosity, and it craves novelty. And unfortunately, a lot of us, we learned in school, but the moment we left school and walked out into the world, we've given up on our personal commitment to growth. And so I'm inviting you with great love and respect to reclaim the curiosity you once knew as a child when you were overflowing with awe and wonder. You see, our natural state is the way we're as children. We're built to be curious. We're built to be passionate. We're built to be full of energy. We're built to question things. You look at a little child and it's like, Mommy, Daddy, why? You look at an adult and they've contracted their curiosity. They've given up on seeing the magic in the world. They no longer grow. And so the mindset I want you to start practicing, because no idea works unless you do the work. To install a core belief, you just practice it until it becomes automatic. That's how you actually get to change your psychology. And so the mindset I invite you to start practicing each day is what I call the 2X, 3X mindset. To double your income and your impact, triple your investment in two core areas. Number one, your personal mastery, and number two, your professional capability. And how do you do that? Again, you do it through learning, study, and growth. So I guess what I'm suggesting to you is you look at most of the population and you commit yourself to what I call anti-majority behavior. If you want to have a great life, a soaring life, a creative life, a productive life, a ultra prosperous life, look at what most people do and do the opposite. So most people, what they do is they love consuming as opposed to creating. We live in a civilization of consumers. Buy this, eat this, do this, consume this. But the top 5%, those who play in the rare air of world class, are not consumers, they're creators. Suffering gets a bad rap in our world today. In society, we all want it quick. But if you look at, again, a Nelson Mandela, a Mother Teresa, a Mahatma Gandhi, a Rosa Parks, a Martin Luther King Jr., a Marcus Aurelius. You look at the great statespeople, the great women who led nations, the great men who led movements. I've been studying samurai lately. I've been studying a lot of the great warriors. I've been reading a lot about Alexander the Great. And you could say, well, Robin, in the comment section or whatever, you could say, Robin, some of these people were bloody, some of these warriors. And I hear you. My larger point is simply this. If you look at the great warriors or the great empire builders or the great heroes of humanity, they all had one thing in common. Many of them developed invincible moral authority to
to live by their deepest vision, values, and virtues through the hard winters of deep suffering. A GCA, a gargantuan competitive advantage, in a world where everyone wants it easy. They want a warm house. They want a car with heated seats if you live in a cold place. We want great food. We want a life of ease. We want all our devices around us. We want easy friends who don't make us, maybe who don't stretch us. We want to, if we even read, we want easy books. I guess what I'm suggesting to you is voluntary discomfort will build you and strengthen you. And the great heroes of history often didn't do it voluntarily. They suffered. They suffered in a prison cell. They suffered for the benefit of their movement. They suffered long treks through mountains with not a lot of food when they're on a military campaign. They suffered the humiliation of being attacked by their critics. And so in this age of ease, we are becoming weak as leaders, weak as humans, weak as possibilitarians. And I'm just saying to you, sure, have your nice things. You know, we all want a nice life, myself included. And yet make sure you don't fall into the chasm or the trap of living a life that is so easy that you don't develop those muscles of strength, fiery resolve, and moral authority.
Why do so many people on the planet right now medicate themselves? They medicate themselves with too much technology. Anyone agree with me? Show of hands or a round of applause. Like they are medicating themselves in front of that white screen. 110 times checking the smartphone every day. That is not checking your technology. You know what that is? That is an addiction and an escape from what is. And if you said to most people, did you know you're addicted to your smartphone? Did you know you're addicted to your notifications? Did you know you're addicted to your television? Did you know you're addicted to your excuses? Did you know you're addicted to gossip? Did you know you're drinking too much alcohol because you are addicted to it? Did you know that this is all a flight from what is? Because deep down inside, the deepest unknown part of you knows that you are in pain over potential unlived. They would fight you to the death. Am I making sense here? Show of hands. Deep down inside, I believe most people on the planet are heartbroken. Why? Because they have betrayed the visions, ambitions, values, mission in their heart. They have betrayed their talent by buying into the mass hypnosis that the world has sold them. And now they're 35 and they're 45 years old. And they're just, oh, no, this is what everyone does. And they just check. And then, you know what Blaise Pascal, the French mathematician, said? Most people, their misery is derived by their inability to sit quietly in a room by themselves. You know how many people are frightened of their own company? And I've shared with you, right? No, seriously, they're frightened of their own company. I've shared with you the neurobiology, transient hypofrontality. You can't play at Edison. You can't play at Misty Copeland. You can't play at world class unless you bring yourself away from the world and do the practice, do the training, do the thinking to set up transient hypofrontality. And that creates the pharmacy of mastery. And it brings you from beta to alpha. And it releases the dopamine and the serotonin. And the psychologists have told us that state is flow. And I guess what I've been suggesting with transient hypofrontality, you have flow within you. You have genius within you. Most of us are so distracted. They're so overstimulated. They're so interrupted that they don't create the silent spaces where their genius can present themselves.
Secondly, most people, the 95%, and this is no judgment, just reporting, but they're pleasure seekers. If you look at the true warriors of humanity, you look at the true empire builders, you look at the true titans who are constructing a better world, they're less about pleasure seeking because they understand that growth comes through discomfort. Willpower is built through voluntary acts of quote unquote suffering. I mean, to do hard work is to grow. To push yourself on a project to places that frighten you is to expand your creative capabilities. I hope I'm making sense for you here. But pleasure seekers don't create monuments. If you look at the Taj Mahal, if you look at Piazza Navona in Rome, if you look at the Great Wall of China, if you look at the Mona Lisa created by Da Vinci, if you look at the Sistine Chapel created by Michelangelo, if you look at any great company, okay, an Apple under Steve Jobs, for example, or it might have been Elon Musk's companies. I don't know what companies most speak to you, but if you look at any world-class company, Under Armour comes to mind. These companies took grit, they took suffering, they took relentlessness. Any creative person has to face the arrows and slings of their critics. So you get to world-class through the doorway of discomfort. And how do you build a strong inner core? You do it by walking into the metaphorical hard winters of growth. That's how you train. You look at a great athlete. It's the way they show up in the championship game is simply how they showed up in the lonely light of the early hours at practice. It wasn't easy. I mean, I always think of Muhammad Ali. He said, I didn't like any one of those early morning training sessions, but I said to myself, suffer now and spend the rest of your life as a champion. We live in a world where the dominant message of society is if you want to be a leader, be sort of mean, be aggressive. You know, you got to thump your chest a little more if you want to lead the field. You got to speak a little bit louder. You've got to be all about me versus thinking about we. And so what I want to offer to you right now is simply a reminder, because your wisest part knows the truth. You know, on the last hour of your last day, when you reflect on your life, if you were not kind, I think you're going to feel heartbroken. One of my mentors when I was a young lawyer was a judge, and a very special man. I learned so much from him. I was so incredibly influenced by his commitment to excellence, by his integrity, and by his outright honor. And a few years ago, he had retired, and I made the trek back to where he was living. And we spent 2 glorious hours together where we remembered, you know, our best times when I was working for him. And towards the end of our conversation, I asked him for advice, you know, like, what's most important? What are the best lessons you've learned from life? What suggestions do you have for me as I go forward, as I pursue my mountaintops? And he said this, and he said, you know, he spoke of excellence and he spoke of honesty. And then at the very end of our conversation, he said, and Robin, please always remember to be kind. He said, oh, Robin, it's so important to be kind. And then he reached over and he did something he'd never done. He hugged me and he said, Robin, I love you. Leadership is not about a title. Leadership is not about the size of your office. Leadership is not about having formal authority. Leadership is a mindset. Leadership is a way of operating through your days. Leadership is a heart set. Leadership is a way of being. And I think, we're now in Leadership 2.0. The old model of leadership said you need to have a lot of money, or you need to be a prime minister or president. You need to be a CEO or a managing director in order to be a leader. Leadership 2.0 is fundamentally different. Leadership 2.0 simply says, if you can breathe, if you are alive, you not only have the opportunity, you have the responsibility to show leadership, not only in your work, not only in your creativity, not only in your impact, not only in your influence, but even in your personal life.
install the lead without a title mindset. And again, that's just a way of thinking. It's an approach. No matter what you do, no matter what your station in life is, start thinking like a leader, because you really have a choice when you go out in the world every day. You can be a victim or you can be a leader, but you can't do both. And so the more you practice showing leadership in your work, showing leadership with your family, showing leadership in your community, showing leadership in your private self, practice drives performance. And the more you practice it, the more you start to step into the mindset of a leader without a title. I mean, the reality is, reading a book or going to a conference or having a great conversation where you get this golden information, that's all fantastic. But what makes mastery is execution on the ideas, not the ideas. And so no idea works unless you're willing to roll up your sleeves, do the practice, invest the time, put in the effort, do the work. I think we've all observed a lot of people who they love reading the books. They love showing up at the courses. They do all the online training and nothing ever changes. And they say, well, I don't know why it doesn't change, why my life doesn't change, why my thinking doesn't change, why my performance doesn't change, why my relationships don't change. Well, it's because ideas don't work if you don't execute on them. So if you look at the great business builders, you look at any great performer, one thing that makes them great is their grit. One thing that makes them great is their hunger to practice. One thing that makes them great is they are willing to sacrifice. I mean, yes, they're passionate, but did you know the root of the word passion is suffering? You've got to be willing to suffer for your vision. You've got to be willing to suffer to reach BIW, best in world. You've got to be willing to suffer the ridicule and laughter of your critics and your cynics to get to a place called world class. Nothing fails like success. You're successful, maybe it's in your health, maybe it's in your finances, maybe it's in your career, maybe it's in your family life, maybe it's in the way that you show up in the world. Awesome. You're in a really vulnerable place right now. It is one thing to be successful. It is another thing to sustain success over the coming decades. Is that not a powerful idea? I mean, let's go to the entertainment industry. It's very hard to be a one-hit wonder. Let's not knock a one-hit wonder. But it's even harder to become an iconic rock band or hip-hop band. Let's go to the arts. It is very hard to come up with your Sistine Chapel. Got it. It is even harder to become a Michelangelo. So are you playing the short game or are you playing the long game? This is rule number 2, or lesson number 2 that life has taught me. Play the long game. Aim for legendary. Don't just say, I want to be world class in my dominant pursuit for a little window of time. Say, I want to have the guts and the grit and the acumen and the mindset and the capability and the commitment to create enduring success. And that's why I say nothing fails like success. You look at the restaurant that is hot in your neighborhood right now. They're on the path to obsolescence if they're not really careful. Sure, they went from a little neighborhood shop that made beautiful pasta, that had great service, that had the owner on the floor, shaking your hand, getting to know your name. Then they got written up in the magazines, and then they got interviewed, and then word of mouth spread like wildfire. And what happened? They became arrogant. You see, success can be so toxic. And it happens, it is such a pull on every human being. It just plays with your mind. And you literally shift from humility to arrogance. You shift from humility to arrogance. And once the arrogance sets in a mindset, it starts to populate every other person on the team, every other person in the culture, every other person in the community. And it is a very short fall from success to irrelevance. So lesson number 2 is nothing fails like success. As you become more successful, become more humble. As you become more successful, work even harder. As you become more successful, care even more about your product. As you become more successful, learn even more. I invite you, when you are the titan of your industry, be sitting in the room with 18-year-olds beginning their game. When you are the
the icon of your field. Be the person who is up, not at 5 o'clock anymore. Let's play at 4 o'clock, reading, listening to the podcast, writing in your journal, setting your goals, focusing on your intentions. As you become more successful, be more humble. As you become more successful, be even more punctual. As you become more successful, become even more passionate. As you become older, become even younger. Yesterday, I was walking on the street and I met this man in his 80s. He had said, Robin, I finally retired. He's probably close to 90. And he is a legendary clothier in the country that I live in. And he just retired. And he started his shop, which is now an empire, in 1954. So I don't know what that is, but that is decades and decades and decades and decades. And he did not want to retire. He just retired, but he is still on fire to do amazing things. Age is just a number. Do not let an old person into your body. Nothing fails like success. I think failure is the highway to success, and I know that sounds like a platitude, but society or people teach us, right? They say, oh, if you fail and feel uncomfortable, you've done something wrong. And what I try to do in all of my books and my presentations and my tweets is you cannot get to the mountaintop without taking a few missteps. And so a business that wants to win, you have to outfail your competition. And as human beings, failure is not a bad thing. Ask yourself, what's the opportunity from the failure, and get in the game, because when you get to the last hour of your last day, it will not be the failures you regret, it'll be all the risks you didn't take.
We become our standards in many ways. If you are surrounded by B players or average performers, and that is your standard, then your mindset will operate at the standard that is offered to you by the people around you. I mean, we do become our social orbit. And if you are at a standard internally that I want to be a game changer in my field, I want to be BIW, the best there ever was, I want to be the Van Gogh and the Rembrandt of technology or whatever field you play in, then your behavior always matches your internal identity and your inner standards. So your standards are important, your standards for your friendships, your standards for the quality of the work you do, the standards of your languaging, the standards of the nutrition you put into your body, the standards of your love life, the standards of your mindset, the standards of the way you occur in the world. And so my invitation for you, regardless of what you do, is that you raise your game to a place called world class. And that is all about being a game changer. Now, I should caution you, and I don't like that word because language is so powerful, and caution is a word that really is a little dramatic. But I want to caution you, which is as you leave the herd and the crowd and perhaps the cult of mediocrity and rise to being a game changer, it's a very disruptive act. And you actually threaten the masses of people around you. And that's why every visionary was first ridiculed before they were revered. And I'm sure you've experienced it. You say, I want to take my fitness to a whole new level of world class, or I want to take my craft to a whole new level of world class, or maybe you're raising your game financially and then you share it with those you love or your friends, and maybe your friends are those you love and they laugh at you. And how many times have we given up on a dream because we were mocked by the people around you? And all I'm suggesting to you is when you get laughed at and ridiculed, and when people don't understand your next level of world class, that just means you've got a great dream, and that just means you're on the path of growth. So be a game changer. Small wins matter. I mean, we sometimes think that an epic life occurs one sunny Friday afternoon when the stars line up and something revolutionary occurs. And what I'm suggesting to you with great love and great respect is a great life is built not by revolution. A great life is built by evolution. Small and steady wins the race. What you do every day is far more important than what you do once every decade. I want you to really think about that idea. What you do every day is simply your life in miniature. And as you live every single day, so you're crafting your life. What you do over the next hours is really building your future. And if you can just get, and I can just get every single pocket of 24 hours right as best as we humanly can, the rest of our life is going to take care of itself. So small wins matter.
The moment in front of the customer where the pull was to go average and you become a merchant of wow, sets you up for the next day of a way of being of wow. The little win with your family when you feel like watching TV sets you up for another win the next day. A little win of getting up at 5 o'clock and running your morning routine sets you up for a habit of a 5 a.m. club morning routine. Small daily improvements over time will lead you to stunning results. Tiny wins are the way to greatness. And that's one of the things life has taught me. When you look at the great companies, whether it's an Amazon, whether it's some of the tech startups coming out right now, whether it's a Zappos, whether it's a FedEx, whether it's a Nike, whether it's a General Electric, whether it's some of the little shops in your neighborhood that we really admire because people still cook the food with love, or they serve the food with love, or people have an attention to detail. Great companies are built by those small, steady optimizations every single day. If you look at any great product, it wasn't just one day that built the great product. It was a culture and a mindset of daily innovation and optimization when done consistently over time, which led to world class. Even relationships. A great relationship, it's all about those small daily wins when done consistently leads to a lifetime of love. I was walking in the woods last week, and there was an elderly couple walking in front of me, and they really stood out because they were moving fast, and they were also they had these ski poles, and so this is the autumn in my hometown, and they were walking with these ski poles, and so I sort of joked as I walked by them because it's pretty much only the three of us in this deep forest, and I said, "You're missing the snow," and they sort of laughed, and we actually walked for about half an hour. And we started going pretty deep. And they said to me, we've been married 52 years. And I said, 52 years, what's your secret? And the woman says, well, I've had to put up with a lot, which made me laugh. And then it was all about the little, small, daily things they did to foster a lifetime of love. I believe that potential unexpressed turns to pain. And when we are born, we're born as children into awe and wonder. Adults are nothing more than deteriorated children. But as we leave the perfection of childhood, where we're intimate with our gifts and our talents and awe and wonder, our parents, doing their best, say, you want to be an astronaut? Be practical. And then we go to school and we say, well, I want to be a rock star and I want to be an actor and I want to be Jay Shetty when I grow up. And they say, oh, no, he's a different kind of, cut from a different cloth than you. And we get seduced by the beliefs of the people around us, and we go from this awe and wonder and intimacy with our glory, our primal glory. That's just the human condition, and we start to forget who we truly are. And as our dreams start to fall apart, and as we lose that connection with our best selves, and as we get sad and disappointed, and as we failed, that's just part of life, a lot of us shut down. And we don't know how to process through that pain, so we repress it. And so the great sports superstars or the billionaires I work with, or the companies like Starbucks, FedEx, Nike, IBM, when I work with their leadership teams, what I do is I help them move through that well of blockage within themselves, because in the book there's a very disruptive model. And it's called the 4 Interior Empires. And just really quickly, so many people are talking about mindset. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right? Everything is mindset. Mm-hmm. If you just dial in your mindset, you're going to go out there and you're going to change the world. Well, here's what that model is about. I think mindset is only 25% of the personal mastery equation.
Yep.
And here's why. It's very important to have a great mindset. That's your psychology. You want to wire in the beliefs of world class, no question. But a great psychology with a broken heart or a heart full of pain, if you haven't forgiven the unforgiven, if you're stuck in the past, you can read the books and go to the courses and get a great mindset and you're all on fire, but you sabotage yourself because your emotional life is toxic. Mm-hmm. So it's not just mindset. There's this second word I'm introducing, which is it's going to transform people. It's heart set. Mm-hmm. But it's not only purifying your heart set. You want to calibrate your mindset, purify your heart set, and then it's this other word I'm introducing, health set. That's the 3rd Interior Empire. Because if you want to change the world, don't die. Right?
Yes.
So one of the keys to legendary is longevity. And there's a lot of the book on how the best in the world, the great geniuses, manage their vitality. So they were like in their 90s still rocking their craft. So it's mindset, heart set, health set, which is your physical life. And here's a key that I think will resonate with you. It's the fourth interior empire is your soul set.
Yes.
Now, some of your listeners from across the planet will go, well, I'm a business builder, or I want creativity, productivity. Why are we talking about soul set? Well, if your ego is running the day, you're never going to go out there and change the world. A bad day for the ego is an awesome day for the soul. So working on your soul set so you are a titan of humanity and you're intimate with your highest nature and you're wiring in the great values and you're living for a cause that's bigger than yourself. That's what allows you to go out in the world and move through failures and really own your domain. So those four interior empires, once you work on those, you go out in the world and automatically everything you touch is golden, because our outer success is always a function of who we are. Before the sun rises is the time of least distraction. Before the sun rises, where you can build intimacy and fluency with what you want to stand for in your day. Before the sun rises, the luxury and tranquility of the early morning hours, you can do that deep inner work that will allow you to go out in the world and play at your best. So what the 20-20-20 formula is simply this. There's 3 pockets. The first pocket is move, 5 to 5:20. And you get into the sweaty exercise because, like I mentioned, it releases neurotransmitters, it reduces the cortisol, it increases your metabolic rate, which gives you more energy. So now, and serotonin as well, which gives you joy. So now it's 5:20. Fundamentally, you feel different. You have energy. Your state is strong. You've got a fire in your belly, and you've accelerated your focus. 5:20 to 5:40 is the second pocket of the 20-20-20 formula, which is reflect. We live in a world where a lot of people are busy being busy, but what's the point of being busy around climbing the wrong Mount Everests? And so clarity is one of the DNAs of mastery. You know this. If you talk to the titans of industry and you talk to the people really getting traction around their ambition, these are people who have a monomaniacal focus on the few things that matter. They have an obsession bordering on a possession around the few priorities they want to build their life around. And so 5:20 to 5:40, the second pocket, you write in a journal. You meditate. You visualize. You do what I call in the book a blueprint for a beautiful day. Or you just sit in solitude and you think and you ponder and you reflect. And then the final pocket is 5:40 to 6 o'clock, and this is the victory hour. The final pocket is grow. But if you look at the greatest billionaires, I've coached many billionaires over the past 20 years. If you look at the greatest producers on the planet, these people have one thing in common. They are ridiculously curious. And no matter how much money they make and no matter how much impact they have, they maintain a white belt mentality. One of the keys to epic performance is a relentless commitment to daily growth. So that's the 20-20-20 formula that the 5 a.m. method is built around. And the premise is basically this: as you begin your day, so you handcraft the rest of your day. And if you have consistently great days, you're going to have consistently great weeks, quarters, year, and a lifetime. So your days are your life in miniature, and you got to get those mornings calibrated if you really want to win. Every genius entrepreneur has an eccentric vision. So they're possibilitarians. They are the people who said, well, here's the way the industry has always been, and here's the way the status quo is, but here's what we're going to do. What's coming to the top of my mind right now as I record this is Uber. So you've got Travis Kalanick, and literally through that single app, they don't own any taxis, they don't own any cars, they don't really have any inventory, but through that single app, Uber disrupted the entire industry of that level of transportation. And so, these people, these genius entrepreneurs come up with a ridiculously disruptive idea that is absolutely eccentric in its vision. And that's why people call them crazy. And I'll simply say to you, if your vision is not routinely called crazy, then
perhaps your vision isn't big enough and disruptive enough. And we change the world when we change the game. Bono is sharing the story that I believe he heard, and it was the person walks inside Kanye West's living room, surveys the living room, and cannot believe what's on one wall of Kanye West's living room. And it's this giant poster of Kanye West. And so the person who's in the living room goes, Kanye, it's a beautiful living room, but why do you have this massive poster of yourself in your own living room? And Kanye replies, well, if I don't believe in myself, no one's going to believe in me. And my take on that insight is simply this. No one's going to believe in your lofty vision. No one is going to embrace and enroll in your mighty mission if you don't viscerally believe in it. I mean, no one's going to believe in you unless you believe in you. And Kanye, in many ways is a disruptor in his field. And Kanye, in many ways, is playing at mastery in terms of his craft. But that's coming from this incredible self-belief. And yes, I understand some people will say he's arrogant, and I in no way am encouraging anyone to be arrogant or vain. But the larger point for you and I, as people on the rise to mastery and creating lives that are legendary, is to really dial in on that insight, which is, you know what? We really do have to have the confidence to believe in ourselves, because a lot of time as a leader, a lot of time as a business builder, a lot of time as a craftsperson, we will be in the wilderness. We will have an idea for a business or a product where the rest of the world says that's impossible. And we have to be coming from a place from within where our I can is larger than our I can. You absolutely must do the interior work required where you have these fiery levels of confidence where when the world is saying, you know what, I dismiss your vision or that is impossible, you have to be that lone voice who goes, no, you know what, it is possible and just watch me do it. You can be a history maker, or you can be liked by everyone around you. You can't be both. I mean, the very nature of living your personal greatness and doing something otherworldly in our world of ours means you're going to have to think differently from the majority. You're going to have to install the habits and routines that most people don't do. You're going to have to live, talk, breathe, walk, work, produce, create in a way that most people who are card-carrying members of the cult of mediocrity just don't buy into. I mean, you look at most people out on the world today, and this is not judging, this is just reporting, but they're addicted to entertainment, they love gossiping, they're negative, they're toxic. Anyone who wants to do anything great, they want to bring them down, they dismiss the game changers, and they're just coasting through life. And so the very nature of you stepping up your game, living your greatest potential, owning your craft, dominating your field, and living a life that's legendary means you're going to have to leave the 5% and make a decision to live as very few people do. And what does that mean? It means you're going to be laughed at. It means you're going to be ridiculed. It means you're going to be misunderstood because leadership is a lonely sport. And it means you just might be hated. And so there is great value when people start to hate you. Because if you look at Jay-Z, I was reading his biography, and he said, I really knew that I was having influence in the popular culture when people started hating me. If you look at a lot of the great authors, when their books go to #1 globally, a lot of the amateurs actually start to say, oh, that's garbage, I could put them down. I watched a documentary last night on Steve Aoki, the famous EDM, electric dance music DJ who's getting so much traction in the world right now. And he was talking about some of the comments that he sees in the social media. And it was things like garbage and, boring and amateurish music and whatever. Even though he's so skilled. You just watch the documentary called I'll Sleep When I'm Dead. And you just see the skill. And you can just look at any great athlete, and you can look at any great scientist, you can look at any great chef, you can look at any great artist, you can look at any great author, you can look at any great statesman, you can look at any world-class stateswoman. Anyone who has done something at an exceptional level breeds cynics and dismissers. So, the point is simply this: the very nature of doing something that very few people are willing to do means that the majority will laugh at you. Why? Because deep inside, they know they have the opportunity to do something great too. And all I'm suggesting to you with great love and respect is simply this: you do have a choice. You can listen to your haters, you can be one of the haters, you can join the victim herd, you can dismiss people who are doing great things, or you can reach into yourself and ask yourself this fundamental question: what do I want to stand for the rest of my life? Do I really want to rise to mastery? Do I want to get to the last hour of my last day and know that I took every ounce of the human potential I was blessed with, and through easy times and difficult times, I brought it on. And as a result of my values, my mindsets, my heart set, my habits, my routines, my disciplines, I owned my game, and I modeled possibility, and I served lots of people, and I built a great lifestyle. And now it's the last hour of my last day, and I'm surrounded by my loved ones. And even though people threw stones at me, I took those stones, and rather than being knocked down, I constructed a monument of mastery that stands as my legacy. And if you live like that, you'll be one of the great ones. You're in a restaurant, the server generally gives you what you expect or less than what you expect. You go into a clothing store, it's what you expect or less than what you expect. You do business with any organization, it's generally delivering on what you expect, but more often, even less. So you have a gorgeous opportunity to lead the field in everything that you do by doing one thing: practicing every single day, because it's a muscle, the ritual of over-delivering. Don't just give your customers what they expect, give them 10x more than what they expect. Don't just give your organization what your manager, what your boss, what the organization is expecting from you. Show something that is so rare in today's economy: initiative. Initiative. So you're asked to do a project, give them 5 more things than they expect. You're asked to give a presentation on something, go the extra mile. Consistently dial in the daily habit of over-delivering on people's expectations, and guess what? You become a merchant of wow. You become indispensable to your organization. I wrote a book a little while ago called The Greatness Guide, and one of the chapters talked about the importance of being indispensable. And I learned that when I was a young lawyer. And I remember talking to my mentor. And I asked my mentor, the top litigator at this firm, how come he is the icon of the legal profession in this region? And my mentor looked at me and said, Robin, because that person is indispensable to this firm. Well, how do you do that? By practicing the ritual of over-delivering every single day for the rest of your life. Bill Gates was asked what was the winning formula of Microsoft when Microsoft was really the heavyweight champion of their industry. I think they're a little lost right now, but the larger point again is he replied with this: what made Microsoft was not our software. What made Microsoft was our hiring. I just want to suggest to you the second point or trait of a world-class company is their ability to hire A players. Here is the brain tattoo I want you to absolutely hardwire into your business philosophy as a leader. You cannot build an A-level company with C-level talent. If your company is not winning in your field right now, you likely have weaknesses in your hiring. Don't just hire people because it's the easiest move to make. A lot of companies spend very little time on hiring, and then most of their time managing their hiring mistakes. And you know, if you're building a business, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a manager, if you're a CEO, like a lot of the people who watch these mastery sessions and come to my live events, you know I'm speaking truth here. So you really want to nail your hiring.
I've been evangelizing one particular message for 2 decades, and it's you can lead without a title. You know, the seduction of society is that you have to have formal power to make a difference, and that's just a lie the world has sold us. The reality is you can lead without a title, and really the difference or the defining trait of a leader is you shift from victimhood. See, victims love making excuses, and if you recite your excuses long enough, you actually think they're going to be true. I see it around the world, you know, people saying these things like, I don't have time to run, or I'm not good enough to be great at my work, or this would never work, or I don't live in the right country, or life is hard. And the more you recite those excuses, you think they're true. So let go of your excuses, start getting some results done, and over time, you're going to rise to your world class.
Be yourself, everyone else is taken. Well, that really speaks to the power of being an original. It speaks to this concept of authenticity, being yourself. I mean, we live in a world where there has never been so much of a seduction to be like everyone else. There's never been so much influence and hypnosis through the social media and through society to talk in a certain way, to walk in a certain way, to buy certain things, to measure your success by the same philosophy. And what I'm encouraging you to do, based on this Oscar Wilde quote, is to be yourself. I mean, talk your talk, walk your walk. Take the time to reflect on your dream. Be true to your own values, because life's greatest heartbreak is self-betrayal.
Make your I can more important than even your IQ. Now you're saying, Robin, what are you talking about right here? Well, a lot of people get stuck in victimhood versus leadership by the seduction of saying, well, I'm not smart enough. I'm not intelligent enough. Well, you are intelligent enough. What's even more important is your mindset of possibility. You see, if you look at the best athletes in the world, the best musicians in the world, the best entrepreneurs in the world, the best managers in the world, the best CEOs in the world, the best coders in the world, the best pizza makers in the world, the best mums and pops, etc., etc. Those who get elite level results are not the most intelligent or naturally gifted people in their field, but these are the people that have that mindset of possibility, and it's all about I can. And that might sound like a bit of a platitude, you know, having an attitude of I can, a mindset of possibility, a mentality of legendary. But when you really deconstruct it, it's really true. The way you begin each day sets up the way you live each day. I mean, the Spartan warriors said it so well. Sweat more in training, bleed less in war. And if you want to be literally undefeatable in business, literally unstoppable in life, you really want to dial in your morning routine. And so you want to do things like starting the day sweating, because that releases BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, that repairs brain cells from stress. You want to sweat because that's going to increase your metabolic rate, which is going to give you energy. And we live in a world where energy is even more valuable than intelligence. You want to, in your morning routine, take the time to write in a journal so you actually can detect your values, reconnect with your goals each day, get to know yourself even more, because awareness is the beginning of transformation. And you want to get your morning routine right, so you take some time at the front end of your day to learn. Because as you learn more, you know you're going to achieve more. And as you understand better, you can achieve larger. For the past number of years, I've been reading obituaries. And you might say, Robin, that's negative, and I don't think it's negative, I think it's really positive. Because I think few things are as powerful to wake you up, to remind you about what's most important, to fuel your energy, to get you into the game so you let go of your fears and you do what you need to do to get big things done, than connecting to your own mortality. When you realize that every single day could be your last, or when you appreciate that no matter how long you live, life is a short ride,
you just sort of let go of the fears and you let go of the limits and you live full on and you seize opportunities and you have real conversations with real people and you sort of wear your heart on your sleeve and you bring on the fullness of your authenticity and you do whatever it takes to get your loftiest dreams to get done. And so I read these obituaries and it reminds me about what life is all about. And relatively recently, I've started walking in cemeteries. I was in Mauritius a little while ago. It's, I don't know if you've been to Mauritius, but it's this paradise on earth. It's this tiny island about 4 hours off the coast of Cape Town. And I've been to Mauritius a number of times. I was there to give a big leadership event. You know, I talk about leading without a title. So it was filled with iconic CEOs and people running big industries and big companies and entrepreneurs and startup people. And it was really wonderful. But I also took about a week and a half just to refuel and to work on my new book and to reconnect with my values and to set myself up for the coming months. And one of the things I did was I went for a long walk. I love walking. I find interesting, like I find a lot of the most creative people and most productive people in the planet, they all have one thing in common. They have the routine of walking on a regular basis. And so I love walking. I've walked in nature for many, many years. And so here I am in Mauritius and I just started walking. And I was actually listening to an interview of Charlie Rose and Steve Martin. And it was done in New York in front of an audience of a few thousand people. And it was about an hour and a half long. And Steve Martin was talking about his career, and Charlie Rose is one of the great interviewers of our time. So he was asking about how he became so good at what he did, and his life, and his love of art, and stand-up comedy, and acting. I mean, Steve Martin became an actor after a stand-up comedian, etc. And so I'm walking, and the sun is setting, and I'm walking along the Indian Ocean, and I'm looking at the flowers. And I get to this little village, and it's this really, this little village with a lot of character. And as I'm walking along the edge of the village, still close to the seaside, I spot a cemetery. And I've learned to follow my instinct more than ever before, because instinct is more powerful than reason. And life will lead you to an interesting place if you stay with the flow. And so I walked towards this cemetery, and I walked into the cemetery. And I started walking through the cemetery very respectfully and carefully. But it was interesting to me because a lot of the tombstones were just made out of wood. And somewhat sadly, some of the wooden crosses were actually really, really small. And you could tell that the grave sites were of kids. And as I walked through the cemetery, I saw these crosses and I saw some tombstones. Some looked very old. A few graves looked fresh. And it reminded me really about the shortness of life. I mean, Marcus Aurelius has written one of my favorite books, The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. And actually, he didn't write it. Marcus Aurelius was a Roman emperor. And during a long military campaign, in his journal, he wrote his thoughts and his philosophies. And someone found those diaries, those journals, and made them into this book called The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. And he does talk about the shortness of life. And so does, Epictetus and a lot of the great Stoic philosophers. And being in this cemetery and walking through it with great delicacy, it reminded me how short life is. And it reminded me we all have hopes and dreams, and we never know when those dreams are going to get dashed. And we never know when our last day will unfold. Some people will wake up tomorrow morning, they'll get in their car. They'll take a shower, they'll have their coffee, they'll say goodbye to their loved ones, and that will be the last day that their loved ones will ever see them. Some people on the planet the day after tomorrow will go into their doctor's office to get the result of a routine checkup, and the doctor will say, "Sit down, I've got some sad news for you." And they'll be diagnosed with maybe some kind of a terminal illness. I mean, accidents, illness, tragedy, catastrophe, is also a reality of humanity. And so
what I'm suggesting to you is do whatever it takes to be in the moment and to stay positive and to stay on your game and to optimize your craft and to spend time with your loved ones and to take care of your fitness and to learn something new every day and to enjoy the beauty of sunsets and star-filled nights, and at the same time, as much as possible, please do not lose perspective. Stay connected to your mortality. You know, Steve Jobs in that famous Stanford speech said it really well. You know, you are naked. You have nothing to lose. And he learned that when he connected to his cancer. And so maybe you will install a ritual once a month. On the way home from work, you will pull over to a cemetery and you'll spend 5 minutes even in meditation, looking at the tombstones, looking at the crosses, studying the graves, or whatever your tradition is in whatever nation you're from, because not every tradition I know has the grave sites. Sometimes it's the funeral pyre, which really reminds me that life is really short and you never know when your last day is going to be. And so just build some kind of a routine to remind you on the shortness of life, so that you tell the people you love how you feel about them, so you write the letters that need to be written. And I know people don't write letters, but writing a letter to someone you need to express forgiveness to or gratitude to is really powerful. Pursue the projects that will allow you to be the legend of your industry. Chase the passions that fuel your joy and live every day as if it was your last, because we never know when our last day will show up. So for the next 90 days, your first 90 minutes at work, make it focused on your single most important project. I'll repeat that again. For the next 90 days, the first 90 minutes of your workday, focus monomaniacally on your single most valuable project. I call it your game-changing move. So it might be creating a new piece of code that will revolutionize the marketplace. It might be a new product that when you launch it will fill a need within your industry that no peer is currently providing. I don't know what your game-changing move is, but this is your poetry. This is your magnum opus for the next 90 days. So what most people do is, people who are playing at victimhood, people who are in the 95%, people who are making excuses about ordinary results in their life, a lot of them are not doing the things that would give them legendary results. And what they do is they get to the office, and rather than using prime time for activities, they use their best hours watching dancing cats on whatever it is, whatever the video platform is. They spend their best hours surfing the internet, looking at blogs. They spend their best hours playing with notifications, reading notifications, chatting with friends who are not really their friends, but really they're just bored, so they're distracting themselves, which is just a form of medication, because potential unexpressed turns to pain, and they're in a lot of pain, and it's subconscious, and they haven't done the work to know it. So really, they've created these drugs of choice, like too much email, too much web surfing, too much chit-chatting, too much looking at funny looking videos that make them laugh in the moment, that make them feel happy and give them a short burst of dopamine and maybe a little bit of serotonin, which is the pleasure neurotransmitter, and that's how they get through their day. And all I'm saying is there is so much distraction available to you out there that if you are not acutely careful, it will dominate your day. A ritual for you to run and dial in and hardwire to the point of automaticity, that's the word the researchers use when a habit becomes your new normal, over 66 days, is the 90-91 rule. And to give it to you again so you really remember it, for the next 90 days, your first 90 minutes, create a tight bubble of total focus so that no one can distract you. Turn off your devices, put them in a little plastic bag, put some reminders on your door, maybe some Post-it notes that this is my tight bubble of total focus for the next 90 minutes. Tell your team, tell your loved ones, maybe put a do not disturb sign on your door. They'll laugh and explain it to them. that for the next 90 days, I will spend 90 minutes away from distraction, away from technology, away from interruptions, focusing on my magnum opus, focusing on the genius project that I want to bring into the world, because I will never mail it in. I will always bring it on, and I'm going to do this for the next 90 minutes, and I'm going to optimize it and iterate it every day, and I'm going to bring my full bandwidth, because what makes a genius, they all have one trait in common: they were able to spend extended periods of time in isolation, focused monomaniacally on their most valuable project. You've heard me talk about the 2x, 3x mindset. So to double your income and your impact, triple your investment, including your time investment, in two core areas: your personal mastery and your professional capabilities. You see, when you work on your personal mastery, you awaken your mindset, your heart set, your health set, and your soul set. And when you get those four interior empires to world class, you become a force of nature out in the world, and you do epic things. So you want to work on your personal mastery like you're doing here with me right now by listening to this episode. And then the second thing you want to do is you want to work on your professional capability. You want to be the heavyweight champion of your game. You want to dial in your sport, whether your sport is entrepreneurship, whether your sport is being a chef, whether your sport is being a coder, whether your sport is being a manager, whether you're an entrepreneur, a CEO, an astronaut, a poet, I don't know what it is. But when you focus on your personal mastery and your professional capability, and you really work on those, I'm talking about hours every day if you are serious about leading the field, what starts to happen is this: you become a vastly more valuable person. You become very aware. And that's why I say education is inoculation against disruption. That's why I suggest to you with great love and respect, leadership belongs to the learners. Maya Angelou said it beautifully. She said, when you know better, you can do better. With better awareness, you can make better choices. And with better choices, you're going to see better results. I mean, it's the awareness that you bring to every day based on your learning, based on your investments in training. Well, what does that do? It gives you the ability each day to make better choices, better decisions. When you look at a great life, it's just a series of beautiful choices done daily, stacked on over time. And so when you get great awareness, heightened awareness, more acute awareness of what it means to be a leader, an elite performer, an A player, an awesome human being, an epic producer, a fit human being, a loving human, it just goes on. With that awareness, via your learning, you can make better decisions every day. What makes a great company is less about your good opportunities and a lot more about you having the bravery and discipline to say no to your many good opportunities. What destroys a great company is actually opportunity bloating, too many good opportunities. So literally, you diffuse your team's bandwidth and you get distracted. And you see with so many companies right now, they sort of found their sweet pocket and they were absolutely winning in their marketplace. And they decided to go, we've got this app that is really changing the game and owning the marketplace. Let's get into food delivery. Let's get into this. Let's get into that. It happened to General Electric as well. And you probably know they decided at one point, if we can't be one or two in any market, we're going to get out of that market. That's the key point I'm trying to make. Know your mighty mission, know your monomaniacal focus, and then have the discipline to say no to everything else so you can lock and load on your finest opportunity to completely change the game. The traits that make you strange are the gifts that make you special. And so I know you're different because you wouldn't be here with me now if you didn't feel you're different. You probably don't fit in with most conversations. I sure don't fit in with most conversations. I don't know a lot about most things that most people talk about because I don't participate in the majority, right? I don't participate in the news. I don't like to gossip. I like to encourage people versus diminish people. I like to be productive versus busy. I like to be creative versus complacent. I like to create value versus take from other people.
I like to move into my present and future versus get stuck in the past. I like to be fast versus move too slow. I like to be a leader versus a victim. I like to believe in possibility versus get stuck in rational thinking, because the instinct is so much more powerful than intellect. And all I'm suggesting to you is simply this. It's the very things that make you different that make you authentic. And if you don't fit in, I just want to share with you, I've never fit in. And the very nature of anyone who's living a visionary life, and you are living a visionary life, no matter what you're doing, let's not get trapped in labels. Oh, I'm just a coder. I'm just a receptionist at a restaurant or in an organization. I'm just a yoga teacher. I'm just a gym manager. I'm just a chef in a restaurant. I'm just a teacher. People always say this when I interact with them on the social media. I'm just an entrepreneur. I'm just a student. No, you're not. I'm just a mom. I'm just a dad. No, you're not just. You're very special. There are no extra people on the planet today. And I just want to say to you and validate for you and encourage you, those things that other people might not get, those are your gifts. You might be awkward. Awesome. You see the world through a different lens. Steve Wozniak, who was on my stage at the Titan Summit Zurich, the co-founder of Apple, one of the best people I've ever met. He would not have been able to create the Apple platforms and products that he created if he didn't see the world through a different set of eyes. Steve Jobs saw the world through a different set of eyes. Travis Kalanick of Uber saw the world through a different set of eyes. Jeff Bezos of Amazon saw possibility. Let me have an online store that initially sells books. John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa, Rosa Parks, Jean-Michel Basquiat, Beethoven, Michelangelo, who did the Sistine Chapel, and in Florence, David, Jonas Salk, Tesla. We could just go on and on and on and on. These people were misunderstood because the nature of a genius is to not fit in.
One of the lines from right out of the 5 a.m. Club is, one of the DNAs of legendary is longevity. So if you look at the Picassos, the Jean-Michel Basquiat, you look at the great sports champions, you look at the great history makers, they were much better at energy management than time management. And so we're in a war against distraction right now, and what we really have to do is optimize our energy. How do I do it? Well, I get to the morning routine, which the whole book is based on. But it's really quite powerful, because if you start your day with sweaty exercise, you're actually going to activate a pharmacy of mastery that exists in every human brain. I know you love the neuroscience. You're going to release BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factor. That's going to actually accelerate your processing. It's actually going to repair brain cells that have been damaged by stress. You're going to release the neurotransmitter dopamine, which is the fire neurotransmitter, which we all need as entrepreneurs and business builders and servants of humanity. Cortisol, the fear hormone, is highest in the morning, so exercising first thing in the morning is going to reduce that. I'm getting into my 20-20-20 formula, but I mention it because it is a way to maximize your energy. And we live in a world where a lot of people, this is right out of the book, an addiction to distraction is the death of creative production. There are a lot of cyber zombies on the planet. There are a lot of people on the planet right now giving the best hours of their finest days to the white screen of attractions. And I really think that betraying your genius, every single person on the planet has primal genius within them. That's scientifically proven. We can talk about it. I go into it in the book. But playing with your phone versus pursuing your monuments of mastery is betraying not only yourself, I think it's betraying the world. And so I really believe, and I've experienced it for 2 decades with my clients, getting up at 5 a.m. and running this calibrated 20-20-20 formula that much of the book is about, will take any human being to a new level of creativity, productivity, prosperity, and service to humanity.
I think, Marie, life's greatest heartbreak is being untrue to yourself. And I come from very humble beginnings. I have a great family. And yet the people around me said, if you become a lawyer, like I basically had a choice, become an engineer, a doctor, or a lawyer. And so I followed through on that, and I went to law school, and I became a really successful litigation lawyer. And I had, a nice place to live, and I had a nice car, and I was making great money. And people said, you're on your way to being a judge. And yet I would wake up every morning and I would look at myself in the bathroom mirror, and I didn't like or even know the person who was looking back at me. And I love that word angst. That angst just got to a point where I said I had to make some changes. And so I started listening to that silent whisper of my heart. There's something I believe in, which is instinct is much more powerful and wiser than intellect. And I think when all of us trust our instinct in a world that says intellect and logic is everything, we start to enter what Mr. Riley in the 5 a.m. Club calls the magic. And that's sort of what happened to me. I find your destiny doesn't knock, it whispers. And so it wasn't this epiphany,
Right.
It was just, I think when you start to trust your instinct and trust yourself versus the world, and you sort of block out the opinions of other people, the pace of synchronicity starts to open up, and these doors that you're supposed to walk through start to present themselves to you.
One of the things about the 95%, a lot of them are complaining, they're making excuses, they want epic lives, but they're stuck in the group of the cult of superficiality. The top 5%, the titans, the icons, the A players, the world builders are very different. They are not about superficiality, they are all about granularity. Literally, they have de-seeded the lemon wedges. This is a metaphor that I teach. Basically, I was at a hotel in Luzern, Switzerland, and I love fresh lemon tea. And when they brought the tray to me, I noticed that in the tray was 2 lemon halves, and someone in the kitchen had taken the time to de-seed the lemon wedges. They actually de-seeded them. And when I study F1 teams, and I actually had the privilege to be right with the team at a recent F1, and what I realized is F1, almost like no other sport, is really about de-seeding the lemon wedges. It was the smallest granular detail, the smallest calibration that could make the difference between a top 1 and a 10th place finish. I really want you to think about that. I really want you to think about F1. F1 is won or lost in milliseconds, because each lap, if you get a little bit faster and you do it with consistency, because consistency is the mother of mastery, that is the difference between first place and not even placing. And so if you look at the top 5%, they are all about de-seeding the lemon wedges. If you look at the top 5%, they're all about calibration. And people might misunderstand you and say, are you obsessive? Why do the details matter? And all you have to do is smile and say, because the details matter. And if you study Beyonce, study the great athletes, you study the great F1 drivers and teams, they do de-seed the lemon wedges. They do calibrate the Pomodoro. They get OAD, that brain tattoo I've become really well known across the planet for, an obsessive attention to detail. OAD. That's what makes the best hotels, the best entrepreneurs, the best teams, the market leaders, the best restaurants, the best hotels, the best cars, the best products, the best user experiences online. They are sweating the tiniest, seemingly innocuous details to create over time a user experience that creates a global base of fanatical followers.
Number 3, unbelievably important, which is the importance of scheduling. I talk a lot about having a dream, having a plan, being inspired, but all ideas don't work unless you do the work. And some of the best work you can do is getting really good at
creating a one-page plan. Have your big five, the 5 things that need to happen this year for this to be your best year yet on a one-page plan. Your top 5 values, put them on that same plan. Your top 5 sub-goals sequenced into each quarter of this year on that one-page plan. And every morning while your competition or the rest of the world is asleep, get up at 5 a.m. I'll teach you how to do that in future videos. But look at your one-page plan. Spend 20 minutes on that so it becomes a brain tattoo, a burning obsession, so it alights you with inspiration. So you go out in the world and you understand that clarity is power, and you so intimately know what has to happen during this day, this week, this month, this quarter, this year to get you closer to your mountaintop. Because the hours that ordinary people waste, extraordinary people do. Because they're not bored like most people. Most people need to medicate themselves with too much TV, too much Facebook, too much video, too much chit-chat, too much busyness because they don't know their goals. Because they don't have a one-page plan. Because they don't have a one-page schedule. I mean, I've got my schedule for every 7 days. Almost everything I need to do goes on it. And you might say, Robin, well, that's a very rigid way to live. No, it's a very free way to live, because then I have the power to live life on my own terms. I feel inspired. I'm not wasting each day. I'm leveraging each day.
Become outrageously enthusiastic. And again, you're going to say, Robin, let's hold hands and sing Kumbaya. You know, being enthusiastic isn't important. Next thing you're going to tell me is get up in the morning and look in the mirror and saying, I think I am. I like myself, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. But isn't it true that the most enthusiastic person in the room influences people, and they elevate people, and they encourage people? Another issue of Fortune magazine a little while ago did a story on Richard Branson's Necker Island conference. He invited all sorts of amazing people, and the reporter in the room said something I've never forgotten. The reporter said, it was striking to me how in each of the conference sessions, the moguls of these giant firms were always the most enthusiastic people in the rooms. It's amazing to me when I meet world-class CEOs. They are the most humble, the most passionate, they are the most engaged, they are the most lively people in the room. I think it's fundamentally important to be the most enthusiastic person you know. I think in so many ways, leadership is about inspiring people by your example.
Persistency versus the short game. We do live in a world where everything just happens so fast that if we have a project or a cause or a mission, if it doesn't happen instantly, or if it doesn't manifest or materialize the way we want it within a month or within a quarter, or even within a year, we give up. And we then start chasing the next shiny toy of opportunity. So I was in Piazza Navona in Rome a few weeks ago working on a new book. And I love Piazza Navona because it's one of the most beautiful squares on the planet. And when I'm in my creative cycle, I go there just to refuel. And if you walk into Piazza Navona, what you're going to see is, I think it's called the Four Rivers sculpture by Bernini. And the point I'm trying to make to you is, as I looked at this masterpiece of a sculpture, what I realized is the true masters are not all about impatience. They're not all about the short game. They understand that world class is a process and that genius could take decades. And what makes rare air output is the ability to stick with a singular vision of your masterpiece, whatever that is, a great company, a great family, a gorgeous life, a new book, a film, I don't know. But mastery comes through deep focus, patience, and persistency. And when I looked at Bernini's sculpture, you could see the level of detail. You know, and so few people have it. It really is a gargantuan competitive advantage, a GC, what I teach in my work as a GCA, a gargantuan competitive advantage, because most people don't have patience anymore. Most people do not have the grit and the resolve
to stay with a sculpture, that's a metaphor for you, their sculpture for maybe a year on just a little piece. And maybe the next piece of your sculpture, another year or 2 years. You know, it took 22 years to build the Taj Mahal, but it became one of the 7 wonders of the world. That's a metaphor for you that I really want you to think about. There's a reason why the visionary founder of Starbucks, Howard Schultz, rises before the sun. There's a reason why Michelle Obama rises very early. There's a reason why Tim Cook, who's leading Apple, gets up before the dawn. First of all, the hours between 4 and 6 are the time of least distraction in this age of dramatic interruption. Number 2, the hours before the sun rises is the period where your brain is most available to your primary creativity. So while you're sleeping, your brain actually washes itself, but also it lets go of the residue of the previous day while you are resting and while you are recovering. When you wake up, your thinking is fresh, your creativity is most pristine, you are most available to access your gifts and your talents. So those are some of the reasons why I encourage you to get up early. You might say, Robin, well, I'm not an early riser. I can't put mind over mattress. I can't win the battle of the bed. Grandma never got up early. Dad couldn't get up early. I guess I'm not the kind of person who can rise before the sun. And what I would suggest to you is simply this. What science confirms, and in particular the data of University College London, you do any new habit, practice it for 66 days, and you will arrive at the place of automaticity. In other words, it'll be easier to run the new habit than not to. 66 days of rising at 5 a.m. will get you to a place where it's easier to get up at 5 a.m. than not to get up at 5 a.m. You'll reach a place of automaticity. In my book, The 5 a.m. Club, I say all change is hard at first, and it's messy in the middle, and it's gorgeous at the end. I'll repeat that again because it's so important. All change is hard at first, messy in the middle, and it's gorgeous at the end. In the book, there's a chapter on the habit installation process that actually explains the 3 phases every habit goes through before you wire it into the place where it's automatic. Number 1, destruction. Number 2, integration. And number 3, implementation. Really important to remember that. So you can get up early. You can install habits. As a matter of fact, neuroplasticity, which is the phenomenon that speaks to the fact the brain is like a muscle. The more you flex it and push it, the more it's going to grow. You have that gift. It's not just for Federer and Serena Williams and Oprah Winfrey and Shakespeare and Jean-Michel Basquiat and Steve Jobs and Elon Musk. You have a brain that has the capability to grow and adapt. So what is the 20-20-20 formula that lies at the core of the 5 a.m. Club method? Well, the first 20 minutes, move. Sweat. You'll release BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which will increase the neural connections of your brain, as well as repair brain cells damaged by stress, and also promote neurogenesis, which is the formation of new brain cells. I know this is a lot of information, but I want to give you great content in this video. Exercising for 20 minutes first thing in the morning from 5 to 5:20, the first part of the 20-20-20 formula, releases dopamine, which is the inspirational neurotransmitter. How valuable is that for your creativity and productivity for the rest of the day? Cortisol, the fear hormone, is highest first thing in the morning. Exercising will reduce it. Serotonin is released, so you'll feel happier. Now it's 5:20, you're full of energy, you've optimized your cognition, your focus is increasing. It's only 5:20, the rest of the world is asleep. Just imagine that advantage you already have. Second pocket of the 20-20-20 formula is all about reflection. We live in a world where people don't reflect anymore. A lot of people are busy being busy, but what's the point of being busy around the wrong things? So for 20 minutes from 5:20 to 5:40, you reflect, you pray or write in a journal, you meditate, you can visualize. You can script out a blueprint for a great day ahead, which habit researchers call a pre-commitment strategy, which actually increases your willpower and your ability to get your most important priorities done. Okay, now it's 5:40. From 5:40 to 6 o'clock, this is the final 20-minute pocket of the 20-20-20 formula. The first pocket was about move, the second is reflect, and the third is grow. I've coached billionaires and CEOs and NBA superstars and members of royalty for over 20 years. Here's what I've realized when I work with the best of the best. They love to learn. They love to grow. They don't see investing in yourself or investing in your skills or investing in your growth a cost. They think about the value received. I call it the 2x, 3x mindset, to double your income and your impact, triple your investment in two core areas, your personal mastery and your professional capability. So for 20 minutes, what do? You listen to a podcast, you review your journal notes, you read a book, you watch a valuable video, you just do something, you read an autobiography, you do something to grow your capacities and materialize more of the potential you have been born into. And now it's 6 o'clock. You've optimized your mindset, you've purified your heart set, you've calibrated your health set, you've escalated your soul set, you feel fundamentally different. In the 5 a.m. Club, there's another model called the 4 Habits of History Makers, and one of the elements is day stacking. The whole idea is simply this: get your mornings right. Your days are going to be fundamentally more energetic, creative, productive, and high impact. And a great week is nothing more than a series of great days, and a great month is the same thing, and a great quarter is just a series of well-lived weeks, and it just continues and it creates this upward spiral of success just by getting from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. your victory hour to world class every morning. Consistency really is the mother of mastery, and own your morning. You're really going to elevate your life.
When something doesn't work out during your day and you get discouraged, you lose your fire, ask yourself this question: what's the opportunity here? That's what WTOH stands for. What's the opportunity here? What I've realized is when things don't work out, the victim says, oh, boo-hoo, poor me. They get stuck in sadness or anger or regret, and some of them spend the rest of their life in that state. What the leader does is this: you feel the pain. You notice the disappointment. You never want to suppress that. That would build up the toxic emotions within you. So feel the disappointment. If it's, you forgot your keys somewhere, you lost your wallet, you missed a train, you missed a meeting, you lost a sale, or maybe it's something heavier. You just got your heart broken. You just lost your job. You just got some negative news from your doctor at your annual checkup. I mean, that's one of the things that happens in life. We all face very hard times. When those things happen, feel the emotion. Do not suppress it, because the quickest way out of the painful or sad emotions is straight in. But here's the real key. Ask yourself, what's the opportunity here? How can I use this small or large negative event to grow? How can I use this situation to give me more wisdom, to give me more acumen, to make me more experienced? How can I use this situation to strengthen me and fortify me? How can I use this situation to become more authentic and more real? Because it's the difficult things in life that crack open our social mask and allow us to be more real and more authentic. How can I use this situation to build my relatability so I'm more relatable to human beings? And ultimately, how can I use this situation as fuel to make my life even better? If you simplify versus go complex, what happens is you can then take your energy and your focus and your personal resources and focus them on the few things that will be most important. And that's what the great ones do. They marshal and harness their resources, their mental focus, their physical energy, their personal willpower, their individual gifts, their time. I call those the 5 assets of elite performance. And they focus them on just a few things. And I want you to think about it in your life. If you stripped away all the noise, you focused on the signal, you stripped away all the complexity, you got monomaniacally concentrated on just a few things, of course you'd be brilliant at those few things.
All genius has a dark side. So whether it's a Beethoven or a Buffett, whether it's a Federer or a Serena Williams, whether it is a Jean-Michel Basquiat or a Ferran Adria, the things that allow for genius all have a downside or a dark side. Here's some examples. Someone who is absolutely brilliant at execution has a dark side to manage of impatience. Someone like Steve Jobs, who is a fanatical perfectionist, could be seen as demanding. Someone who is amazingly creative could self-sabotage with too many ideas. The key is this: honor your gift, manage the downside.
The vast majority of people, what they do is they are pursuing things. They derive their power by what they have in the world. They measure success by more money and a larger house and a faster car and more social status. But if you look at the so-called great ones, the history makers who have shaped humanity, they really are in an alternate universe or another orbit. They're really not fueled by the things that most people are chasing. When I look at a Nelson Mandela, for example, what I've realized is through their interior work, my 4 interior empires: mindset, heart set, health set, and soul set. And so through his interior work to build his internal character, Nelson Mandela got to a level of maturity that most people just don't get to. Why? Because most people are so outer focused and building exterior lives, and it's not so hip and cool and stylish anymore to build vast and undefeatable interior lives. But he did. And maybe it was a lot of his time through the suffering of 27 years of incarceration. Maybe it was the 18 years that he spent in isolation on Robin Island. The point really is, through his personal excavation, through his reflection, through his prayer, through his contemplation for so many years, he built a vast interior reservoir of strength and creativity and true versus fake power that created an inner life of incredible maturity. And so the first point really is do whatever it takes to build a life of such maturity where it's not about your ego, but it's about lifting the world. And that's incredibly powerful, because if you base your power on things, should you lose those things, you lose your power. You're in a really vulnerable place. But if you derive your power and your self-worth and your sense of self from who you are, your moral authority, your sense of creativity, your ability to love yourself, your knowledge of the fullness of the gifts that you were born into, if that's where your identity comes from, then your world could fall apart and you still stay strong. So, first point, work on your maturity level so you get to a place where it's not about me, it's about we. Work on your maturity so you're not deriving your strength in the world from external things, but you're getting it from your internal character or your internal life. You have a responsibility to manage yourself. Sometimes people say, well, my boss is grumpy and cranky and doesn't really appreciate me. One of the key ideas is people don't leave companies, they leave the people they worked with. You've heard that before. That's not my idea. That's out there. But the point on lead thyself is you're responsible for managing your mindset, your heart set, your health set, your soul set. Every time you blame your boss or your husband or your wife, your past or your children, the economy or your nationality, you're giving away your power to be the change you want to see, to use the words of Mahatma Gandhi. With our customers, my team runs a protocol called the 10x value obsession. How can we deliver 10 times the value at every single touch point of the user experience that our customers who come to the live events or go into my online courses or even read my books are expecting? They pay $20 for a book or $30 for a book. How can I give them millions of dollars of real value? Someone said to me recently, in your mastery sessions, you're giving away the store, or something like that. I sort of can't believe how much value you give. And my reply was, because my intent is to serve. I mean, this is not a business for me. Yes, I run a business and a series of businesses. I'm an entrepreneur. But the point really is, my intent is so much larger than that. I'm on a mission bordering on an obsession to help everyday people understand the neurobiology of greatness. And they can lead without a title. If you've read my book, The Leader Who Had No Title, that they have heroism in them, and then giving them the neuroscience, the research, the performance data that will help them win in their careers, live great lives, live their potential. This is so much more than a business for me. And this comes from value number 2. I see this as a movement, a sense of community, a sense of giving, a sense of helping you fortify the genius within you in a very difficult world. So you say, Robin has given me thousands of ideas in these free mastery sessions that I can choose to act on every day to go out there and fireproof my heroism so I can do great work that wows the world, do great things for my family, and leave an impact on history that stands the test of time. And if I do that in my own way, then I've served you and I've done my job well. 8th rule for a monumental life is get great at your craft. Look, you have a gargantuan competitive advantage because most people are caught up or card-carrying members. And I say this with respect, but it's reporting reality. Most people in the world right now in business are card-carrying members of the cult of mediocrity. In a previous episode, and I share this in my leadership presentations, I believe the world today is suffering. And that word, I'm choosing it consciously and carefully, from the collective deprofessionalization of business. A little while ago, I was in an airport. There was an elevator repairman, and he had his boombox cranking out hard rock. Well, that's fine, but he's at work. He's not at home. I go into a store these days. There are people listening to music out loud when they should be taking care of customers. You walk into an airport, and you see people behind the desk or whatever, rather than being pros, owning the game, you literally see them chit-chatting or, again, looking at videos of dancing cats and people riding bicycles off the roofs of their houses. You know what I'm talking about. I call it the collective deprofessionalization of business. Very few people, relatively speaking right now, say, this is my craft. I've got to be a pro. I've got to study the audiobooks that relate to my game. I've got to find mentors. I've got to read the books. I've got to practice like Federer or Serena Williams or Muhammad Ali used to practice. You know what Muhammad Ali once said? He said, I hated every single one of those early morning runs, but I loved the idea of being champion of the world. So one of my brain tattoos that I've become very well known for is, no one will believe in you until you believe in you. And so good people often become seduced by the chatter of their loudest fears. And what I mean by that is, we come up with a great idea. Let's say it's to start a project that will allow you to lead your field. Let's say it's an idea for a new product that will allow you to grow a new company. Let's say you come up with an idea for a new painting if you are an artist. Let's say it's an idea that will allow you to take your fitness and your wellness and your longevity to a whole new level of wow. And pretty shortly after you come up with the idea, your ego starts screaming. Because we are good in our comfort zones, but the moment we start to go blue ocean around our next level of mastery, our fears come up because we're going out into the unknown. It's human. You know, if you were to look at the psychobiology of it and you were to study the pure biology of it, there's a term called homeostasis. Human beings are hardwired for a steady state. And that kept us alive. So literally our heart beats around the same amount, the 72 beats per minute, and our blood pressure is within a small bandwidth, and that allows us to survive. But what happens is when we come up with a new idea and when we see a new opportunity and we start to leave our comfort zones into the zone of the unknown where greatness lives, we get scared. And the true heroes and the true titans and the true masters, those people are not fearless. Those are people who have just practiced walking into their fear and living on the razor's edge consistently to the point where they're comfortable amid their discomfort. And that's the great opportunity for you, not to avoid fear, but to be comfortable in the unknown, to be comfortable when you're terrified. And that really is what the great artists, the great entrepreneurs, the great titans, and the great masters are very good on doing. So the first reason good people lose is their faith is not as strong as their fear, or to put it a bit more elegantly, their fears are larger than their faith. And so to be tactical for you, how do you build more faith? Well, you do what you're frightened to do. And it's a practice. A great athlete practices every morning. And a great producer practices walking into their fears every single day. And what I'm encouraging you to do is every single day, do one thing that causes your palms to sweat. Every single day, start training your brain to hunt for opportunities to step into that unknown where possibility lives. And if you keep on doing it, you're literally going to build some new neurological hardwiring, a new pathway in your brain where it becomes easier. Because as you know so well, all change is hard at first and it's messy in the middle and it's beautiful at the end. If you want to have a world-class company, release only magic. Another way I could put it, only release Sistine Chapel ceiling level products to the world. Steve Jobs said it beautifully. He said, I wanted the icons on the iPhone to be so beautiful, people would want to lick the screen. I had a senior leader show up at one of my leadership events, and he said, Robin, Steve Jobs was like that. I actually went to his house and met him shortly before he died, and he didn't look very well, but he didn't want to talk about his physical condition. He just wanted to talk about the product we were launching. He was so monomaniacally focused on the user experience. He literally wanted everything to be flawless. That was Steve Jobs's brilliance and obsession. I saw an incredible interview with Johnny Ive by Charlie Rose. And in that, Johnny Ive, who is the design genius behind a lot of the Apple products, he said, I knew Steve Jobs and I were spiritual brothers when we were in a store one day. And Steve Jobs said to me, he goes, hey, come on over, Johnny. You got to see this. And I believe from the interview, I believe this is what they said, but they were looking at an arrow. And Steve Jobs said, look at how the sharp point of the arrow is attached to this part, and look how seamless it is, and look at the engineering, and I wonder how they did that. And Johnny Ive said Steve Jobs was just in the pocket of the engineering and beauty behind that piece of artistry they were looking at. I remember being in Soho, New York, and I walked into one of the stores and I bought a coat. And I was leaving on an airplane for home later that day, and I asked the person who was taking care of me, I said, is it possible, and that's a great respectful way to ask for something, is it possible to get this coat hemmed and adjusted a little bit for me? And I said, the thing is that I'm leaving later today. And he looked at me, and I've never forgotten it, because we all have these people in our lives who say one thing or show up in a certain way, and they stay with us for the rest of our lives. And he said to me these words. He said, I'd love to do that for you. I'd love to do that for you. And again, the whole brain tattoo I'm trying to deconstruct here is
make your I can larger than your IQ. You know, I remember being in Prague and I asked someone on the other, again, I spent a lot of time in hotels, and I said, is it possible to do this? And here was the reply on the other end of the phone. I think it was someone from the front desk, or maybe it was room service. And I try to eat as clean as possible. So probably it was a request, could I have olive oil and fresh lemon or lemon as the salad dressing? And here's the reply. Just to really lovingly and respectfully and hopefully fluently and elegantly bring this leadership insight home to you. I said, is this possible? And his reply was, anything is possible. So it's really easy to get seduced and stuck into a mindset of can't. You know, someone says, let's start a new business. Someone says, here's a great poetic project that if we release it to the world will help us own our marketplace. And it sounds very obvious again, but ask yourself this, is your default reply a symptom of a mindset of can't, or do you have a mentality of possibility? When someone says, here, read this book, do you shift into can't or can? When someone says, hey, you know what? I'm amped to run a marathon. Do you go, I can't? Is that your default setting in your neurobiological hardwiring? Or do you go, absolutely, or I'd love to do this? You know, it's really, really important, and that is one of the core distinctions of leadership, isn't it?
And I'm going to get right into the first rule, which is leader, lead thyself. So leadership is not just for CEOs. Leadership is not just for prime ministers and presidents and people with large bank accounts and massive offices. Leadership is not only an opportunity, but the responsibility of every man, woman, and child on the planet today. No matter what it is you do, whether you're a filmmaker, a startup entrepreneur, a manager of a corporation, a bread creator, or whatever it's called, a baker. I guess that would be a baker. Whether you're a teacher, whether you're a firefighter, whether you're a politician, whether you are a gardener, whether you are a wall maker, I don't know, whatever it is you do, but every day you walk out in the world gives you not only that opportunity, but brings with it the awesome responsibility to show up as a leader. Because leadership really isn't a title. You know my book, The Leader Who Had No Title, you've probably read it. Leadership is less about a title, and it's more about an approach, a way of being. And some of the traits of leaders without titles, they're radiant optimists in a world gone cynical. One of the things about leaders without titles, they don't see their job as a job, they see their job as a craft, no matter what their work is. They understand there's dignity in all labor. One of the traits of leaders without titles, they are relentlessly improving everything they touch, so they leave it better than they found it. And so the first rule for a monumental life is simply leader, lead thyself, which just means see yourself as a leader. And don't wait for the people around you to start leading. Lead where you're planted. Lead by example. You stand up first. Be an army of one when it comes to leadership and spreading that leadership possibility around you. Rule number 4, to thine own self be true. You're going to say, Robin, that sounds sort of familiar. Of course, it's Shakespeare. To thine own self be true. You know, Oscar Wilde said it so much more elegantly than I ever could. He said, be yourself, everyone else is taken. You know, Jack Welch, when he was at General Electric, one of our clients, GE, he said, never lose yourself on the way to the top. Wow, what amazing advice for you and me. Never lose yourself on the way to the top. To thine own self be true. Never betray your authenticity. Never lose your boots on the groundedness. To thine self be true means as you make your rise to legendary, don't forget what makes you great. Hard work, humility, serving your customers, working on your craft, playing the long game, understanding the genius takes decades versus good genetics.
The bow too tightly strung is easily broken, says one of the Proverbs. Balance is a gorgeous thing. So be monomaniacal in your execution around your high-value targets, your HVTs, your mission plan, but also build in some rewards. And that's going to send a gorgeous message to your conscious and your subconscious mind that, hey, this daily practice of execution around my deliverables is a beautiful thing. And you create this thing called momentum. And the monk who sold his Ferrari, I went back and I saw this recently. I think there's a whole chapter on momentum. And you become like this. I love skiing. You start off small, but as you go down the slope, you pick up momentum. A lot of people say, Robin, where do I start? I want to start a new business. I want to become a better artist. I want to find the love of my life. I want to be a world-class creative. I want to multiply my financial life. Where do I start? You just start. You just start. There's great power in the start. Before you go to sleep, ask yourself this question. Did I live out my plan for today? Your days are your life in miniature. All you need to do is not worry about the next week, the next month, the next year. Forget about that. That's a waste of time. Own your day. Your days are your life in miniature. As you live each day, so you craft the rest of your life. And the days slip into weeks, the weeks become months, the months become years. Before you know it, you've lived a legendary life because all you did was dial into gorgeous, brilliant, productive, creative, loving, healthy, soulful days. Your days are the pockets and instruments of genius. Get those right, your life will take care of itself. Don't live your life on the outside to fill these holes on the inside that you haven't filled. Start the interior work of self-mastery to fill the holes so your mindset, heart set, health set, and soul set are full. And then you'll feel joy when you wake up every morning. And you'll work not for the money, but for the meaning. And you'll create with a fire in your belly that will make you undefeatable. It's not because you're pursuing income, it's because you're pursuing impact and craft and love of you honoring the genius within you. Do you see what I'm referring to? Your outer life, you still might work hard. I love working hard. I love it. But I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it because of who I am. I have to write. I have to serve. I have to use the rest of my life to be an instrument of impact for as many people as possible. Leadership is much less a title and much more an approach to going through life. And so when you walk out in the world every day, I just want you to keep that in mind as much as possible. You can behave like a leader, which is assuming personal responsibility for your results, or you can be like a victim, which is something bad happens or something doesn't quite work out and you give away your power and you blame and you complain and you become toxic. And right now the world has far too many victims, people who are, rather than looking in the mirror saying, I have the power to change and I might not like where I'm at in my work right now, or in my life, or in my health, or in my love, or in my spirituality, but I have the power to change. Well, victims say, I might not be where I'm at in the world, but it's because of the world. It's because of my childhood. It's because of my husband, my wife, my boss, my team, my country, my economy. And so my loving encouragement to you is ask yourself right now, am I behaving like a victim? Maybe it's in your health life. Maybe it's with your finances, and a victim would be saying, I can't do this. That's what victims do. I can't do this. Or victims, they point fingers. Well, it's the economy where I live right now, or it's the industry. It's going through a lot of commoditization and a lot of disruption. And if I was in a different industry, I'd be successful. Ultimately, we all know this. We create a reality. And even in the most difficult and most competitive of industries, there are people who are playing at world class, who are doing really well. Why? Because they have a different approach, because they are doing different things. And fundamentally, they're not behaving like victims, blaming and complaining and being toxic and wasting time and living in the past. They're showing up like leaders. So be a leader in all that you do today. Step number 2 in the process of structuring or creating this world-class life, your 5 non-negotiable values. Really important to look at your values. What are values? Values are what you're going to value as you go through your days, as you go through your weeks, as you go through your life. Values could be, what are mine? I value beauty. So I want to be around beauty as much as possible. I love art galleries. I love nature. I love sunset. I love looking at the stars. I love beautiful food, simply prepared with people who I love. I love beautiful conversations. I love beautiful books, because a home with a large library is a wonderful home to be in. So step number 2 in this process to set yourself up for a spectacular life, what are your 5 non-negotiable values? Maybe it's you'll be around beauty every day. Maybe it's no matter what the situation is, I will always live with integrity. Maybe one of your non-negotiable values will be, I will exercise even when I don't feel like it. Maybe one of your non-negotiable values will be family first. I don't know. These are just some things that I want you to think about. You may have read my book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. Sometimes I speak about Ferraris because I don't have a Ferrari, but I love the way that Ferrari rolls. And here's what I mean by that. A Ferrari is in many ways mobile art on 4 tires. A Ferrari in so many ways is a distillation of Enzo Ferrari's philosophy on mastery. A Ferrari in so many ways is a reminder to you and me about what world class stands for. And what I want to really dial into today is this. Did you know that every year Ferrari only produces 7,000 Ferraris? And the point of wisdom, or the powerful idea I want you to really think about and deconstruct in your journal tonight after this mastery session is, why go really wide when you can be singularly deep? I'm going to repeat that again. But a great company and a great performer goes really, really deep on 1 or 2 things, and that's how you rise to iconic. We live in a world, I call it the cult of superficiality, addicted to distraction, afflicted by interruption. So we take the trinity of our performance assets, our mental focus, our physical energy, and our willpower. Those are the 3 primary assets of a world-class producer. And we diffuse them, we disperse them around thousands of projects, lots of little things. And yet I think of the 7,000 Ferrari philosophy. You know, they are world-class in terms of producing iconic automobiles, vehicles, but they don't want to be, they don't appeal to everyone. They don't produce hundreds of thousands of vehicles. They want to do a few products. They want to bring out a few things, but do them really, really well. And that's really the craftsman's mindset. That's how craftsmen think, or craftswomen. It's do a few things, but do them really, really well. And related to that is this. You are an artist. My invitation to you is to produce poetry in terms of your work that the world reveals as mastery. You know, and that is really all about bringing rigor to your game. It's not about doing a lot of things, it's about doing one thing well. Because the secret of genius is not complexity, the secret of genius is simplicity. You look at any genius entrepreneur, you look at any genius producer, you look at any genius athlete, they're not doing 5 sports, they're doing 1 sport incredibly well, and then putting in the training time to be monomaniacally focused so that they become otherworldly brilliant at their one thing. And I guess what I'm suggesting to you ultimately is this. Think about the 7,000 Ferraris philosophy. And if you are a business builder, let's say you're a startup entrepreneur, let's say you're a Fortune 500 manager, let's say you're a professional athlete, because a lot of professional athletes are watching these mastery sessions. Let's say you are a mother or father, a yoga teacher, or a chef. What are the few things that you could actually do in your work so that you take all of your mental focus, your physical energy, and the willpower that you wake up with every single morning, and you really monomaniacally focus those trinity of performance assets on the few things, the few projects that, when consistently iterated and improved
Every day, over time, will allow you to reach a place where the world calls you world class. And if you can not only get this idea on the 7,000 Ferraris philosophy, but apply it so it becomes a way of being, you really will own your game. And it was a poem from the Bengali poet Rabindranath Tagore. And allow me to share it with you. It simply said, "Spring is past, summer has gone, and winter is here. And the song I meant to sing remains unsung, for I have spent my days stringing and unstringing my instrument." And my brother and I used to look at it every morning before we'd go off to school, but I never really understood it. And so when I got a little older, I said, "Dad, you know that poem you had on our refrigerator door? What was it all about?" And my dad looked at me and he said, "Robin, that was a poem written by a man whose heart was filled with regret over a life half lived." He said, "Robin, that was a poem written by a man who postponed his life. He always wanted to do something special. He always wanted to do important work. He always wanted to be loving in the world. He always wanted to be creative. He always wanted to see the world, but he got busy being busy." Are you being busy being busy? Have you lost that connection to the life you wanted to live when you were a little kid? Are you so busy stringing your instrument that the song that your life was meant to sing has died or is dormant within you? And my challenge to you is simply this: to do whatever it takes before you sleep tonight to reconnect with the best within you that you may have lost. Because one of the things I've noticed is this: there are too many amongst us walking the planet today who are sort of in a waking sleep. They have lost a sense of who they truly are. And your life will never work if there's a huge space between who you truly are and the person you know you're meant to be. Your life will never be flooded with energy, creativity, productivity, and happiness if there is a large space between your life right now and your unlived life. And my request and encouragement and challenge to you is truly that you make things happen so that the person you are starting tomorrow is more of who you know you truly are. It makes me think of George Bernard Shaw. He was asked on his deathbed, "What would you do if you could live your life over again?" And he replied after a long pause, "I wish I could become the person I know I was meant to be." And I suggest to you, it's never too late for you to become the person you've always wanted to be. But don't postpone it for next year. Don't postpone it for next month. Start being that person, that human being, that creative force, that business builder, that mother or father, that athlete, that humanitarian, that force of good that you have always wanted to be, beginning right now. Legendary takes time. And you can find yourself a gargantuan competitive advantage where you say, "I'm going to think long term. I'm going to play the long game. I understand that genius and world class and legendary is not a sprint, it's a marathon." And when you do that, you start to raise your level of awareness and you see your job as a craft, not just a job. And you start to say, "I'm not going to put anything out into the world that is less than Steve Jobs' level." You know, Steve Jobs really wasn't an entrepreneur. He really didn't care much about the money. Steve Jobs really was an artist. And you've probably heard me share this before, but there's the great story about when in the mid-1980s, Steve Jobs said, "We're going to launch the first Apple Macintosh." And he said, "You know, I want this computer to be revolutionary." And when I interviewed Steve Wozniak, the co-founder and Steve Jobs' partner at a Titan Summit in Zurich a little while ago, I heard this firsthand, that Steve Wozniak wanted to create computers that were just industry, that would shake up the status quo. That was his obsession. He wanted to do things no other coder could do. And he told me Steve Jobs was an artist. And so in the mid-1980s, Steve Jobs got his design team around him. And here's what he told them: "This is the deliverable, guys. I want this first Apple Macintosh to be so beautiful, it brings tears to people's eyes. But the real deliverable is, I want the inside to be art." And the design team said, "Well, Steve, no one's going to look inside
the computer, no one's going to open it up. Why don't we just focus on a world-class user experience on the outside and beautiful architecture and design? And he said, no, this is what I want. And so when his design team went to work and the engineering team went to work, they literally said, we've got to deliver on Steve's obsession. And when Steve Jobs first saw that Apple Macintosh, when it was produced, he started to cry. Because he saw the beauty of execution around his vision. And then when he saw the inside, he was moved deeply. Because Steve Jobs wasn't an entrepreneur, he was much more an artist. And then he looked at his design team and he said, now I want you to sign the circuit board. And they said, why? And he said, because all artists sign their work. I don't know what you do. I don't know where you live. One thing I know for sure, maybe the world has not told you you are an artist, but I encourage you, see your work and anything you produce as poetry. And your good name is on what you're releasing to the world. And rather than putting out a lot of poetry and a lot of work, why not put out less work, but work that is legendary? Society right now is defining success by how much you have. But Mahatma Gandhi died with less than 10 possessions. I mean, he had a spinning wheel, he had his eyeglasses, I believe he had a watch and a few other things. Mother Teresa, I was actually in her mission in Kolkata, in India. And I went into her bedroom, and all she had was a very Spartan bed and a desk. And if you look at Martin Luther King Jr., these people all lived very Spartan lives and very sparse lives. Why? Because they really didn't care about accumulating things. They were on a monomaniacal mission to free the population that they were serving. It's not about accumulating things if you really want to be a hero of history. It's about finding some kind of a fiery cause that fuels your passion and that brings on your talent for the benefit of helping out as many people as possible. And in my work, I call that a cause. In my work, I call that a monomaniacal mission. And, you don't have to be a Nelson Mandela or a Mother Teresa to live like this. You can be a school teacher who says, you know what, here's the higher mission I want to dedicate the rest of my career to, and it's educating young people to believe in themselves and to capitalize on their skills so they do great things in their lives and they're of benefit to the world. You could be a baker and understand that, you know what, your cause could be every single person who comes in this bakery, I will leave them better than I found them, because every day is an opportunity to lift another human being and to radiate optimism and to model possibility. You could be a taxi driver. You could be a firefighter. I don't know what you do, but the difference between a victim and a leader is a victim sees a job as a job and a leader sees a job as a cause. And that really is a game-changing insight. If you say, you know what, I might not be leading millions, but I am leading a team at the office, or I am leading my family, or I'm not leading anyone, but I'm a human being and I have the capacity to walk out into the world, and in a world where a lot of people are closed and a lot of people are negative and a lot of people have walls, you can stand for possibility, and you can stand for high energy, and you can stand for hope, and you can stand for love. And that's a really profound responsibility and opportunity you have on your shoulders today. Lock and load. You're like a Navy SEAL. You've got the mission plan. Now you execute it. Here's the key. The more you do difficult things, the more you'll be brilliant at doing difficult things. You get better at what you practice. If you complain, you're going to be Picasso level of complaining. If you eat bad food in terms of your nutritional plan every day, you're literally going to hardwire the neural circuits so that you become Roger Federer level at eating bad food. If you're a victim or a toxic person, or what people call a drama mama, and that applies to men and women, and if you do it every day for 10,000 hours, thank you, Anders Ericsson, who did the research on the 10,000 hour rule, you're going to be F1 driver, F1 champion driver level performance at being a drama mama. If you cut corners in your craft at work every day, you are literally hardwiring in and practicing. And if you practice it over 10 years, 10,000 hours in total, you're going to be Mozart level, Shakespeare level, Elon Musk level, Richard Branson level, Steve Wozniak level, Shaq level, Kobe level, at that. Practicing mediocrity. You will get brilliant at what you practice every day. In a world with a lot of people, where a lot of business people, a lot of leaders, a lot of your friends, what needs to happen next year for this to be the best year for your professional life, your personal life, your financial life, your physical life, your spiritual life, your love life? I don't know. Most people spend a lot more time on their summer vacations, a lot more time flipping through the social media versus architecting a world-class life. You want to be one of those rare air few, you know my brain tattoo, to have the results only 5% of the population have. You've got to be willing to do what 95% of the population are unwilling to do. And one of those things, don't be superficial. Don't live a superficial life. Don't have a superficial game plan. Fireproof yourself against superficiality and really understand this concept I've been teaching called granularity. When I work with the NBA athletes who come into my rooms at my events, when I work with the titans, the billionaires, the celebrity CEOs you read about, these people are anything but superficial. They are granular. And you can call them obsessed. You can call them obsessive. You can call them weird, freaks, kooks, misfits. So what? Call them what you want. That's just a label. I'm reporting on reality. These are people who will say, let me show you my battle plan for the next 80 days. Come up with 10 laws you are going to spend or you're going to live the remainder of your life under. That could be one of the things I teach in my work. Don't die. One of the secrets to legendary is longevity. So outlive your industry peers. Amazing what happens when you get into such great physical health that you just outlive everyone around you. You know, it's 90, you're 90, no, you have no competition. Imagine how easy it will be for you to dominate your field. Imagine how good you're going to be if you're 103, still rocking your game. So the point is, don't die. Protect your health. Hack aging. Eat the right supplements. Work out every day. Run my 2 massage protocol. Make sure you get fresh air. The point is simply this. One of your 10 life laws could simply be don't die. One of your 10 life laws could be give more than you take. One of your 10 life laws could be spend an hour alone building your self-relationship. You know, I was reading Marcus Aurelius very early this morning, the great Roman emperor, and he talked about the shortness of life, but he also talked about this. Find some time every day to be amid tranquility so you could think. See, when you're in the noise, you can't think. The noise of distraction and attraction and diversion by technology. When you're alone, and I've found it's the best thing, first thing in the morning, you can actually think about your values. And you can actually get to know yourself again. And you can actually breathe. And you can actually contemplate. What am I going to do today? How am I going to live? How can I make today on earth a valuable day?
Now I've got a special bonus clip that I think you're going to enjoy. But before that, it's time for the question of the day. I want to know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video? And what is your specific plan of action for the next week? When you just watch a video and get motivated by it, you have a 35% chance of following through. But when you get motivated and then create a specific plan of action, you have a 91% chance of following through. That's what we do here, Believe Nation. We get motivated, but then we do something about it. And when you commit to other people, you increase your chances even further of following through. So, what was your biggest takeaway from this video? And then what is your plan of action around it for this week? Put it down in the comments below because I want to celebrate you.
Most leaders, most business people, most entrepreneurs, most human beings have never learned to be masterful communicators. And the very nature of influence and impact, which is the leader's job, is communication. I mean, in school, were you given a communication course? Very few people have been taught that. In your personal relationships, have you read books on communication? Well, that leads to, I mean, in an intimate relationship, or even just with a friend, it's the little miscommunications that over time stack into loss. In your intimate relationships, it's the little conversations that you could have had in 5 minutes if you had the tools to communicate and the awareness to speak. So literally, you could release the anger and build understanding and speak out your needs and feel the need to be heard. All those little things, if you had learned how to do that over and done it in 5 minutes with your intimate partner, you might not have lost the relationship. And in your professional life, learning to communicate inspires your teammates. You know, if you look at the great leaders of humanity, the Nelson Mandelas, the Mother Teresa's, the Martin Luther King Jr.'s, the John F. Kennedys, if you look at the great business builders, Steve Jobs, great example, right? He would be on the stage at the product launch and then that favorite line, one more thing. And that's when he would reveal the latest piece of technology that would create industry dominance when Steve Jobs was at Apple. Well, he was a masterful communicator, and Bud Tribble over at Apple called it his reality distortion field. Steve Jobs was a master salesman. He knew exactly what to say to get people to believe in the impossible, to allow their I can't to be less valuable than their I can.
If you want another amazing video highlighting excellence in the Indian community, check it out right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.